Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 28 male, come from a very prominent and well-connected family. My father is a nationally known politician with over 2 decades in public office, a master of the game who built a legacy out of calculated charm, iron-fisted diplomacy, and relentless image control. My last name is recognizable. I grew up with the kind of pressure and scrutiny that makes you hyper-aware of every word you speak, every friend you choose, every move you make. My mother stayed in the background, compliant, elegant, emotionally distant, and my older brother, 32 male, the golden child, was clearly the one chosen to carry the torch. My father never even tried to hide the favoritism. My brother looks just like him, same strong jawline, same dark eyes, same smile. I take after our mother physically and temperamentally. Where my brother was groomed for speeches, debates, and campaign photos, I was the quiet one. I was told I had a good head on my shoulders, but lacked presence. I did well in school, studied finance, and built my own career without asking for favors. I stayed far from the political spotlight and was honestly content with that. But no matter how well I did, my accomplishments were always seen as minor footnotes compared to the epic saga of my brother's future. My father paraded him around like a prince in waiting. From student council to youth party leadership, every step was paved for him by our father's money, connections, and influence. I saw it. I resented it quietly, but I kept my head down and chose my own path. About 5 years ago, I met Lena, 30 female, who at the time worked in architecture and had absolutely zero interest in politics. That was part of what drew me to her. She was beautiful, driven, and saw me as an individual, not a famous man's son. We connected in a way I hadn't experienced before. We moved in together after about a year, got engaged 2 years later. I thought I'd finally found something untouched by my family's toxic ecosystem. A relationship built on genuine connection and mutual respect. My family liked her well enough. My father was polite but indifferent. My brother flirted with her a bit too much for my liking, but I chalked it up to his usual charisma. He flirts with waitresses, flight attendants, literally anything that breathes. I never thought much of it because I didn't believe Lena would fall for it. Because why would she? We were planning a life together. As the wedding approached, I was anxious but excited. We had booked the venue, chosen the menu, and everything was coming together. My fiance had started to get emotional, a bit distant, but I thought it was pre-wedding nerves. Then, exactly 1 week before the ceremony, Lena asked to talk. Her voice was shaking. She looked like a ghost. And that's when she confessed. She had slept with my brother, not once, multiple times. It started at a family retreat several months ago, in the middle of the wedding planning. She said it was a mistake, that she didn't know what came over her, that it just happened, and that she regretted it immediately. Then she told me she was pregnant, with his child. The thing is, I can't have children. I was diagnosed with azoospermia in my early 20s. I told Lena this early in our relationship. She said she didn't care, that she loved me, that adoption or IVF were options down the line if we wanted kids. We even had long, deep talks about parenthood and what it could look like. I believed her. I trusted her. And then she had S with my brother, and got pregnant, and then had the gall to tell me we could still move forward with the wedding, that we could raise the child together as our own, that I could finally experience fatherhood, and that no one needed to know the truth. She wanted me to pretend, to lie, to become complicit in the ultimate betrayal. I was so shocked and hurt that I turned around and just walked away without saying anything. And for 2 full days, I didn't answer a single call or text. Then came the final twist. My father requested a meeting. I hadn't spoken to him directly about any of this yet, but I assumed he'd heard. He always knows everything. He showed up at my place, calm as ever, looking more like a corporate strategist than a devastated father. He asked me to sit down and said, very matter-of-factly, that this situation needed to be handled carefully. That Lena was young and confused, that my brother had succumbed to temptation, and that what's done is done. He said the most important thing now was managing the optics. My brother's political career was in a delicate stage. Rumors of an affair and a secret child could devastate his public image. If I canceled the wedding and the reason got out, it would destroy everything they'd built. He told me he had a solution. He offered me $500,000, transferred through offshore family accounts. The condition was simple: go through with the wedding, raise the child as my own, and say nothing. He said it would protect Lena's dignity, my brother's career, and the family's legacy. He reminded me that I always said I wanted to be a father, and that's my chance. I said I'd think about it. He left. I didn't think about it. I knew immediately that I would never marry Lena, that I would never forgive my brother. But something in me snapped. The years of being overlooked, of being told to be quiet, of watching them praise him while ignoring me, of always being the backup plan, the expendable son. I thought, if they want to pay me for my silence so badly, fine, I'll take it. But I won't lie, I won't perform. So I took the money. And then I canceled the wedding. I called Lena, told her the wedding was off, and wished her well. I said I never wanted to see her again. I sent out a formal cancellation notice to all guests citing irreconcilable differences and refused to elaborate. I made no public statement. I told no one the truth. I gave no interviews, leaked nothing. I just walked away. Then the storm began. My father called me a traitor, said I had humiliated him, that I had blindsided the family, that I had deceived him by taking the money. I reminded him that I never signed anything, never agreed to his conditions, that he offered the money freely, and I simply accepted. He threatened to sue. I told him to go ahead. My brother is now apparently raising the child with Lena, trying to keep it quiet. Meanwhile, I've gone no contact with all of them. I've moved out of the city, changed jobs, and am currently traveling abroad, trying to find some kind of peace after what was easily the most soul-crushing betrayal of my life. And yet, despite everything, I'm getting messages from my mother, accusing me of ruining the family, that I had the chance to keep the family whole and chose to be selfish, that I humiliated my father in an election year and jeopardized my brother's future, that Lena made a mistake and I should have forgiven her for the child's sake, that it's just politics and I should have known how things work. I honestly don't know anymore. Maybe I'm just broken from it all. But I know one thing. I finally stood up for myself. I said no to being a pawn. I said no to raising a child that was conceived behind my back. I said no to protecting a legacy that was built on silencing me. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for taking the money and then still canceling the wedding and cutting them both off, knowing it would cause absolute chaos? OP was never a son to his father. He was an asset to be controlled or ignored. He didn't offer OP money out of guilt or empathy. He offered it to buy his silence, his dignity, his future, and package it all as family unity. What OP did was draw a line in the sand for the first time in his life. OP's brother and ex-fiance made their choices. OP's father tried to cover it like another political scandal. OP didn't expose them. He didn't go to the media. He just refused to participate in the lie. And now let's hear community's opinion. Not the a-hole. They thought you'd do what you always did. Shut up, make peace, and carry their mess. You took that money the way a hostage takes a ransom, and you didn't spend it. You didn't weaponize it. You just proved you could play their game and still keep your integrity. That child isn't your responsibility. Lena made her choice. Your brother made his. And your father was willing to sell you out for a headline. You walked away, and I genuinely hope you keep walking. What you did wasn't petty. It was powerful. I am shaking with rage for you. Not the a-hole, not even a little. Your father raised your brother like a political project and treated you like an understudy. Then when the golden child tripped over his own ego, he tried to duct tape the scandal by offering you $500,000 to become the ultimate fixer. Except you're not a fixer, you're a person. And for once, you protected yourself. The fact that you took the money and still walked shows incredible restraint. They're mad not because you embarrassed them, but because you didn't obey. And that terrifies people who rely on power to control others. Not the a-hole. You didn't cause this scandal. You absorbed it, quietly, with dignity. You didn't leak it to the press. You didn't blast them on social media. You simply said, "Not me, not this time." That took strength. The emotional manipulation they're throwing at you now is classic. guilt, legacy, loyalty. But it's not loyalty when you're being asked to lie and suffer for other people's sins. They handed you a poisoned legacy and got mad you didn't drink it. You did the only thing that could break the cycle. You walked away. So, a few nights ago, my dad called me and told me that he and my stepmother are preparing their wills, and he wants to talk to me about what portion I'll be receiving. First, let's get this out there, that this isn't about money. I'm a high earner and don't need a cent from them. And my dad and stepmother are healthy as horses, and I hope they'll be with us for 50 more years. So he told me that they're considering 1/5 of the amount they're setting aside for children. My stepbrother and stepsister, stepmother's children, will receive 2/5 each. I asked why not 1/3 each, and he thinks this will be unfair as my stay-at-home stepmother has contributed a lot to the family, and it's unfair if I'll be getting as much as her children. I asked if he has made half the contributions his wife has, as he's not giving me half, but he does indeed think her children deserve more. I lived with my parents until I was 12 when they divorced, and my dad married this woman shortly after. I lived with my mom after that. I visited my dad regularly and have okay relationships with stepmother and step-siblings, but it's fair to say I've always been an outsider to that family. This decision just cements that. I wouldn't expect my stepmother to include me equally as her own child in her will. Hell, I don't even expect her to include me at all. But I expect more from my dad. This just tells me he considers me half as valuable or wanted as his stepkids. So is it okay to be disappointed here? It's okay to be disappointed. It's actually really rude of him to call and tell you this in such a manner. He could have just said, your step-siblings will be getting more than you. I'll warn you though, you may be getting nothing. Many couples write their wills so that other spouses get everything if just one of them dies. But the money gets shared between other inheritors if they both die at the same time. Car crash, for instance. So there's a higher chance that your dad will die and leave everything to his wife. And what are the chances she would change her will and leave everything to her kids? So Dad was a little rude, and you'll probably never get any inheritance. Not that anyone is entitled to one anyway. But you may want to consider whether there's a pattern of Dad treating your step-siblings preferentially, and how that might affect your behavior in the future. People are going to call you greedy and ungrateful. They don't understand that it's not about the money. It's about the value they place on you as a person. Had they told you that they're leaving more money to your step-siblings because they can't support themselves, or that you are so successful that you don't need the inheritance, that would be one thing. But to say to you that the stepmother has contributed a lot to the family, so her children should get double, is frankly bizarre. I don't even understand what they're saying, never mind the logic. It's okay to be disappointed in your father. Tell him he should understand that whatever love and affection your step-siblings feel for him, you'll give him half that amount for the rest of his life. It's not about money. It's about how much he values you. So here's the story. I'm in my mid-20s. When I was 13, my dad and his parents got into a huge blow-up fight, and he never wanted to talk to them again. Previously, my sister and I had seen them about every weekend, but he said that we wouldn't be seeing them anymore unless it was supervised, etc. His parents filed for grandparents' rights, and the case was thrown out with little fanfare. The same day as the lost court case, his stepmother, our grandma, filed a claim with the IRS that my mother, who had a small business that dealt largely in cash out of necessity, had cheated on her taxes for years. What followed was a hellish investigation that lasted 6 years, including IRS agents following my mom, her business in ruins, since no one would deal with her, and a huge amount of stress on the entire family. My mom was eventually brought to trial, found guilty, and served 2 years in prison. As to her guilt, I obviously don't know everything. She has maintained her innocence the entire time, and I mostly believe her. She absolutely was found guilty, and I know the weight that carries. But I've heard an independent tax attorney who analyzed the case say that the numbers and severity that the government accused her of, and she was found guilty of, were not really possible. For how good at making money my mom might have been, she was god-awful at taking records, computers, etc. Her book smarts are definitely very below average. So, did she do something wrong? Probably. Did she cheat the government out of $1 million in taxes? I don't think so. I think it falls somewhere in the middle. She probably estimated when she knew she should have been keeping better records, and the government didn't allow her to present her receipts as evidence, so all gross income was billed against her, and my grandmother knew that and ran with it. In the meantime, I've done pretty well for myself. I ended up attending a great school, footing the entire bill, and taking $75,000 plus in loans to pay for it. My parents were unable to help because of attorney bills and no business. My dad makes $60,000 per year as a city employee. Afterwards, I got a high-paying job in tech that now pays $130K plus a year and was accepted to a top 2 business program for my MBA that I plan to attend next year. My mother was released from prison a few years ago. In the last year, a few things have happened. The IRS has come to collect on the bill, and the amount owed is just over $1 million. About a year ago, my mother's aunt also passed and split an estate that will probably amount to $2.5 million 3 ways, with 2 beneficiaries being my sister and me. The aunt and uncle were very modest people who happened to have a house in Brooklyn that they bought 50 years ago that makes up the bulk of the estate. It was completely unexpected. I would have been surprised if I was left $100. My sister and I had met the uncle only a few times, but my mom was very close to him, and he apparently knew the situation she was in, though when he died, it was in the early stages. She wasn't very close to the aunt. My parents were with my sister at the time she opened the letter, and were very happy for her. They immediately started talking about how we could pay off our loans, and she could pay off her wedding, etc. We were all very happy, and my sister and I also mentioned several times that we were happy we'd be able to take care of them if they needed it. Fast forward to a few months ago. My sister and I were at our parents' house, and they pulled us aside from our boyfriends to tell us that they wanted to see what we thought about making a loan to them for the entire amount. We were pretty taken aback and non-committal, but we promised to look into it and told them again that we wanted to help somehow. A few weeks later, the estate attorneys accidentally sent letters addressed to us to our parents' house, one of the addresses on file. Although they didn't open the letter or anything, they knew that we got something. My sister drove down. I live in a different city, and we had a follow-up conversation where my dad started getting more angry. At one point, he suggested that we could report the money as a loan without expecting to get it back, which my sister told him would be illegal from a tax perspective, and she didn't want to repeat what my mom had gone through, which really pissed him off that she would suggest that he wanted us to commit a crime. As a side note, we've since researched that we'd be able to give them the entire amount as a gift without paying taxes. After that, we didn't speak to my dad for a few weeks. My mom understood where we were coming from, but my dad is a hothead, so she didn't even want to talk to him about it. With my sister's wedding coming up, he even said a few things like, "I'll go, but I'm not going to try to hide my feelings." He was apparently upset that we hadn't committed 100% to doing everything in our power. Eventually, things cooled off a little bit. The wedding went by with only a little drama, but there was some tension. My sister opened the letter without my parents present, and it ended up having $150,000 for each of us, with the rest to be distributed later, which we reluctantly shared with them, more to show them that the estate was still held up. The conversation about paying up has now come back. My parents have 2 rental properties and a small building that have a lien against them, worth probably $800,000. Outside of that, my dad's pension is the only income. Apparently, the IRS will start selling off the properties and raise the bill to $1.4 million if they don't come to an agreement soon. The conversation has also shifted from a loan to an expectation that we will give the money free and clear, with the only promise of repayment being, "You'll get it back when we pass." I've spoken to my dad, and they want to get a loan for $800,000 from the bank against the properties. I question how successful they'll be, and have us pony up the rest from the $150,000 each we got. The expectation, I think, is then that we would pay off the rest of the loan as soon as we got the rest of the estate. I don't feel great about the whole thing. On one hand, my mother may have some wrongdoing here, but not to the extent of what she's gone through. I've seen her plunge into pretty serious depression and anxiety, and she seems to be coping well, but not perfectly. I've never had a consistently great relationship with my father, but it got much better during college and was starting to be very good until this latest bump happened. I've lost a lot of respect in some of the specific things that he said to me and my sister. When he got heated once, he said something along the lines of, "If you wanted to help so bad, Why did we have to ask you for help? Even though promising that they'd never go homeless or hungry was one of the first things that came to mind. And I said that when I found out about the money. When my sister told him that she couldn't pony over $150,000 like that because she was starting a family and using some of it for a down payment. He said, "How could you do that? That was your mom's money." Pretty outrageous and out of line in my opinion. Since he has that mindset, and because he gets aggravated easily, we'd likely be damaging our relationship by even putting conditions on the money, saying that they need to sell a car and property. I also feel like I would be, rightfully, annoyed if I came home to visit and they had anything frivolous that they bought, and I don't want to feel that emotion towards my own parents. My sister is newly married and is purchasing a house. She and I both had a lot of anxiety during school about paying back our loans, but we made it through and are both doing pretty well. At this point, we're both pretty nervous to even talk to them about our finances. My dad never wished my sister well on her house purchase, and I just purchased 3 rental properties with a friend from high school and have decided to keep that information from him. I want to help my parents, but I also know that I'm much better at managing money than both of them. I also don't need them coming to me on their knees begging, but I don't like feeling like I'm in high school all over again, being talked down to, yelled at, and interrupted because my dad sees this as my mom's money. I do see where they're coming from with some of their emotions. They've been dealing with this cloud for over 10 years, and they're desperate to get out. They're probably also nervous that they'll lose everything and see us with more than enough, but unwilling to help. He also may be right that my uncle would have left my mother money if he didn't want it seized, but I don't know. He may have just as well wanted it used on my sister building a house or me furthering my education, something he put a huge priority on. I would have never done the loan option because I know that's asking for even more trouble. I know that any loan or gift to family needs to be free and clear. But what do I do? Am I being too sympathetic with them, and my dad specifically, or not enough? Am I greedy for not wanting to give in? I don't have any pressing need for the money except paying off the remainder of my loans and going to school. But I also know that I'd handle it better than my parents, and I'd be able to start my own family soon with it and have enough to pay for an apartment or something modest for my parents. I'm having a hard time imagining the IRS seizing the properties that my mom lived in and saved for her entire life, while I have the ability to help. But I also feel the need to view it from the perspective of how bad of an investment it would be, and how much more I can help by not handing it all over at once. I also don't like the idea of my parents essentially taking out a loan against something that my sister and I may get. The final accounting isn't done on the estate, and while it almost certainly will cover more than the amount together, and we won't be signing on the loan, it'll feel like we owe them the money. We've also discussed lying to them, telling them it was less than expected, but that we still will pay for housing and food for them. But if they ever found out, through the executor or anyone else, that would also be a blow on the relationship. Any advice or thoughts at all are well appreciated. The fact that them selling their $800K in properties isn't even an option in their eyes is very telling. Selling those off should be the first thing they do, and begging their kids for handouts should be the last. You need to say no to your parents' requests and demands. They want your money in order to get the IRS off their backs about money they are responsible to pay. That money includes not only the estimate of the original unpaid taxes, but also fees, lawyers, costs, and interest. Your parents should have been making efforts to pay something over time to alleviate some of the fees and interest, but from the sounds of things, have done absolutely nothing to mitigate their financial situation. If you were unwise enough to give them money, you would never get it back because there are no assets to get back. If your parents actually used your money to pay off or pay down the IRS debt, there would be nothing left from that to leave for you. But honestly, I suspect some part, possibly even a large part, of any money you might give your parents would not get sent to the IRS. As much as you want to believe your parents' stories about how they got a raw deal, there's a good chance that they are shady with money and would misuse any money you gave them. Your parents could, for instance, sell their investment properties and use any net profit to pay down their IRS debt. They could downsize their lifestyle to live on the money they have. Their problems are not your responsibility. My advice would be to use your inheritance to pay off your debt. Save some for future expenses. MBA, house, and invest the rest for yourself. When asked, be vague but firm. Sorry, but I don't have any of the money available. I paid off my loans and have the rest invested. Giving money to the people you describe would be the same as setting it on fire or flushing it down a toilet. Not kidding. Say no. No is a complete sentence. Don't jade. Justify, argue, demand, explain. Just say no. They will probably flip and throw a fit, but this is their bed. They are now stuck in it. If you do this, you may have legal problems follow you, and I guarantee you'll never see a penny back. So, my brother and I have always had a rocky relationship. We grew up in a very messed up home, and it was every person for themselves. He would throw me under the bus a lot to benefit him. We have never gotten along. The whole family is a mess. I moved away young, over 1,000 miles away, over 10 years ago. He never left, and instead moved his fiance in with our sick mom and was basically babied into his mid-30s. So him and fiance are getting married. Big thing in another country. Him and I get into it at some point while I'm visiting my mom, and I am uninvited from his wedding about 6 months beforehand. About a month before, my mom tells me that he wanted her to let me know I'm invited again. I could have gotten the time off, and I could have gotten my family's passports in time, and I could have afforded the travel costs, but I told them I wasn't going to be able to attend. By the time of the wedding, my mom was not in a good place health-wise, so the family is all very focused on that. This was a $60,000 wedding, by the way. Anyways, my absence was noticed, and some other members of the family knew what had gone down. So basically, his whole wedding day was filled with, "Why isn't your sister here?" And then the other family members whispering and gossiping about the whole thing, and how sad it was, especially for our dying mother. His wife was mad. Some family think that me not going ruined his big day. He says my stunt ruined it, but honestly, I had the time and money, and I instead used it to go on vacation with my husband and kids, and we enjoyed ourselves. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and the people who spent the day gossiping are the ones who ruined it. Not the a-hole, if he can't take the heat. The fact of the matter is that estrangements happen. They are embarrassing, and just because they're embarrassing, it doesn't absolve your brother of his responsibility to act with a bit of class while something like this is happening. The only innocent party in the wedding is your sister-in-law. Not the a-hole. You were uninvited, and then a month before, you were re-invited. You couldn't take time off or pay for it. It's your brother's fault.